All right, folks, what we're going to now talk about is the third goal in macroeconomics that leaders want to try and accomplish, and it is called economic growth. Now, what I want to do is I want to remind you about what we talked about previously about the word output. What is output? And I want to remind you that output is basically the products that we produce in an economy. I call it stuff, okay? But I want to remind you that stuff doesn't have to be physical stuff. For example, some products, a few examples of products, things that you already know, cars. Okay, cars are products, right? This piece of paper, this is a product, okay? So paper, this marker is a product, your phone is a product, my glasses here, my clothing, all products. This whiteboard is a product. It is something that was produced, right? Using land, labor, and capital. So factors of production, factors of production, factors of production are used to make products or stuff. But I also want to remind you that output is not only physical things. Output also includes things like phone service. Now, the phone may be physical, but the phone service, you can't see that, right? You're paying for time, right? You're paying for minutes, or you're paying for data. That's phone service. You may go get a haircut, right? So you're paying for a person's time to cut your hair. That is a product. We call it a service. And so what I'm saying is that anything, goods or services, so any kind of good, or good is a physical thing, or service, which is a not physical thing, all of those things are considered products. All that stuff is stuff I consider to be stuff, and we call it output in economics. Okay? So, when we talk about economic growth, what we are referring to is all of the output that is being produced within an economy. Okay? Now, growth, the idea of economic growth means that we are making more stuff than we did before. Okay? So let me give you a definition here. Economic growth is an increase in total output of products in an economy over time. So here's what we have. Total output. That means all of the stuff, all of the cars, all of the chairs, all of the clothing, all of the haircuts, all of the cell phone service, all of the TVs, all of the cable service, everything that you can possibly consume as a physical product or as a service is total output within the economy. Okay, so total output in an economy. What that means is it's only the output, let's say, in the United States. So just the output of products in the United States over time. And economic growth is when that amount of all the stuff is increasing. So we're experiencing economic growth when each year we make more and more stuff. Okay? So that's what this is my informal definition. More stuff was produced in one year than the year before. Okay, so let's say in 2015 we made 700,000 stuff, and then in 2016 we made 710,000 stuff, and then in 2017 we made 726,000 stuff. Okay, so from 2015 to 2016, we made 10,000 more stuff than we did in 2015. So that means that we had growth. And from 2016 to 2017, we went from 710,000 up to 726,000. That's 16,000 more stuff. But let's say that in 2018, we produced 721,000 stuff. Okay, well then we didn't produce more than we did the year before. We went down by 5,000. So we would say we produced 5,000 less. And so in 2018, we did not experience economic growth because we did not have an increase in total output. We had a decrease in total output. Therefore, we have economic growth, no economic growth, or what we would actually call this is negative economic growth. Okay? So that's what economic growth is. It's the phenomenon where we, as an entire economy, produce more stuff every year than we did the year before. Okay? All right, so here's the problem. Okay, do you remember what we're saying here is this is the goal. So we have a goal to achieve economic growth. But how do we know that we're achieving that goal? Remember with full employment, how do we know if we're achieving full employment? Well, we needed a measure. We needed a number to measure whether we were achieving full employment. How about price level stability? How did we know whether we were achieving price level stability? Well, we needed a number, the inflation rate, to determine whether we were successfully achieving price level stability. So, in order to know whether we are successfully achieving economic growth in an economy, we need a number. We need to be able to measure economic growth. And the only way we can do that is by measuring how much stuff we produced in one year and then compare, okay, we have to make a comparison. We have to make a comparison to this year. How much stuff did we make this year as compared to how much stuff we made last year? And so this creates a problem, okay? We have a problem measuring economic growth. And here's what I mean by that. Problem measuring. So here's the problem, okay? The first one is we have a problem comparing among products. So here's what I mean. Let's try to make it as simple as we can. Let's say that in one year, let's say 2012, okay, we'll say we produced some cars, and we produced 1,000 cars, okay? Or actually, let's do it this way. Put cars over here on the left, and we produced 1,000 cars. And then we also did haircuts, okay? And we produced 692,000 haircuts, okay? And then we also produced shirts. Okay, and we produced 493,000 shirts, okay? This is all products, and so it's all economic activity, and we want to know if there's an increase in economic activity, how much we're producing from 2012, let's say, to 2013. So then in 2013, we now have to make a list of all the cars we produced, right? So let's say in 2013, we produced 1,062 cars, okay? But we only produced 650,000 haircuts, and we produced 492,000 shirts, okay? So we have a problem comparing among products, okay? We can see that the number of cars went up, so that's good, right? That's growth. But the number of haircuts went down by 42,000, Okay, so here we're at negative 42,000 haircuts, but we're at plus 62 cars. And shirts, we went down by 1,000, so we're at minus 1,000. So what people are going to do here is they're going to argue, did we experience economic growth? One person's going to say, well, no, because look, we produced 43,000 less units in 2013 than we did in 2012. Even though we did produce 62 more cars, we produced 43,000 units of haircuts and shirts less. Then someone else is going to come along and they're going to say, whoa, wait a minute, but cars are way more, they're much larger than haircuts and shirts. People only buy one car every 5 years or maybe every 10 years. They get several haircuts every year, and they probably buy several shirts every year. And so you can't compare, you can't say that just because we're down 43,000 on small things, but we're up 62 on big things, right? Well, how in the world are we supposed to compare among cars, haircuts, and shirts? Now understand, I've only made a list of 3 things. How many more things do we have? We have chairs, we have tables, we have phones, we have clocks, we have computers, we have cell phone service, we have electrical service, we have plumbing service, we have painting service. There are all kinds of crazy things that we have. We don't just sell cars. We sell cars, we sell trucks, we sell trains, we sell water, we sell food, we sell grain, all kinds. I mean, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different kinds of products. How are we supposed to compare among all of these products that have different qualities? Okay? And so it's almost impossible when comparing among the products to determine whether we experienced economic growth or not. Another problem is that we have a problem comparing one year to the next, right? We have problems comparing one year to the next. And that is related to this problem of comparing among products. So the first one, comparing among products, is how valuable is a haircut versus a car? How valuable is a shirt compared to a haircut? And now we need to know these cars here and these cars here. Isn't it possible that the 1,062 cars are a different kind of car than the first 1,000, right? Like, for example, if we were to compare cars from the 1980s to cars in the 2010s, cars in the 2010s are remarkably better in almost every way than cars in the 1980s. And so here's the issue with comparing from one year to the next, is that there are qualitative differences in products over time. Over time, stuff changes, okay? Shirts could get better and better over time. Phones get better and better over time. So what if we said cell phones here? So phones, and we said that in 2012, we did 100,000 phones, and in 2013, we also did 100,000 phones. And so we have zero. No change in production on phones. But let's say in 2012 we had the iPhone 3, and in 2013 we had the iPhone 4. Well, the next version of the phone, presumably, the next version of the phone is better than the previous version of the phone. The iPhone 6 is better than the iPhone 5, or the iPhone 7 Plus is better than the iPhone 6 Plus. Depending on who you are, okay? Or what if all these phones, what if this was actually 70,000 Samsungs and 30,000 iPhones, okay? But then in 2013, it was 60,000 Samsung and 40,000 iPhones. Okay, that is qualitatively different. And so, what do we have to do now? Do we have to have a new category? How many Samsungs, how many iPhones, or how many iPhone 3s, how many iPhone 4s, and how many iPhone 5s? This would become impossible. Impossible. Let's see, comparing among products. Impossible due to large number of products. So at any one time, there are thousands upon thousands of different kinds of products. Then from one year to the next, those products have changed qualitatively. The cars have gotten better over time. The phones have gotten better over time. The computers have gotten better over time. Maybe the food has gotten better over time. There have been these, or maybe things have gotten worse over time. They've become qualitatively inferior to what they used to be. So that's a problem. Our third problem in measuring is comparing from one country to the next country. Comparing one country to another. So one of the reasons that we like to identify economic growth is to see how the countries are doing, how England is doing in comparison to France, how the United States is doing in comparison to Japan. We like to see comparisons. We like to see which countries are growing more or growing less, growing faster or growing slower in terms of economic activity. So, what if one country doesn't even make cars, haircuts, or shirts? What if all they produce is phones and coffee? Well then, how are we supposed to compare phones and coffee to shirts, haircuts, and cars? That doesn't make any sense. Also, even if another country does make cars, they make a qualitatively different kind of car than what we make, okay? So when comparing one country to another, what we're talking about is different kinds of products in different countries, okay? So different countries produce different kinds of products. So how are we supposed to compare our 100,000 phones to their 500,000 pounds of coffee? We can't tell. Is 500,000 pounds of coffee, is that more than 100,000 phones because it's a larger number? Well, what if we were to change it to, instead of pounds of coffee, what if we did tons of coffee? Okay, well now it's only, what is that, now it's only 250 tons of coffee, right? Or, yeah, I think that's about right. I can't remember the conversion. So it's not about comparing the numbers, and because the two products are qualitatively different, we just can't compare the production in this country to the production in another country because the stuff cannot be compared. It is simply impossible to compare the value of a 10-year-old USB flash drive to a bottle of Brita purified water, or even to a Black Expo marker. These things are so different that we can't compare their values without having some central number, some central way of determining the values of all these products. And that's essentially what we're trying to identify here, is their values. We take all this stuff and we turn it into utility. We consume it and turn it into utility. But how can we compare these products that are very different from one another? How can we compare them to each other? So we have a major comparison problem in measuring the stuff that we produce. Okay? So here's what we need. I'm going to erase this over here. We need one number. Just like with price level stability, we had one number, the inflation rate. With full employment, we had one number, the unemployment rate. We need one number that sums up all of the value of all of the output in products in an economy over time. Okay? We need, so here I'm going to put, we need one number that can be compared from one year to another and to other countries. Okay? One number, not thousands of numbers. And that one number needs to be compared from one year to the next, so it accounts for all the qualitative differences over time, and it accounts for all the differences in production across different countries, so that it can be compared from one country to the next. And we have something that can be quantitatively counted and accounts for value. Let me remind you, going back several lessons, that money is a measure of value. Do you remember that? And so here's what we do. We take money as a measure of value, and we convert all of the stuff, all of the cars and the phones and the haircuts and the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 6 and the Samsung phones. We convert every single product into a money value, And then all we do is add up the money values of all products. And then what we can do is this one number, we can compare that number year to year. To see if there is economic growth. And basically the assumption goes like this. If in 2012 the money value of all the stuff we produced is $17.5 trillion, we measure our value, our production in trillions. It's a really big number. It's like 12 zeros. You got to move the decimal point over 12 places. If in 2012 we produced $17.5 trillion worth of stuff, and then in 2013, if we produced $18.7 trillion worth of stuff, then that's one number being compared. Well, what do you think happened? If we have a bigger number in 2013 than we had in 2012, then what that indicates is that we must have made more stuff in 2013 than we made in 2012. And that is the goal here. Given this problem of measuring, we can overcome this problem of measuring by converting all of our products into their value in money. And we call that number, when we do this, and we do this, when we do this, we call that number the gross domestic product. For short, we call it GDP. And that's where we're going in the next lesson.